And welcome to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. Today, my guest is Chris Jenkins, Chief Digital Officer with Symphony, and we're going to learn a lot today about net neutrality and also Reddit, two great topics I think that a lot of people don't have a lot of information on but could benefit from knowing much more. So, Chris, welcome to the program today.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So, first off, this idea of net neutrality, I think a lot of people aren't even familiar with this. I hear it rustling through the wind every now and then, but first off, just tell us what is net neutrality and what this issue is.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, net neutrality is the idea that internet traffic going through your internet lines should all just be treated equally, that there shouldn't be any difference. If you're paying for a 100 megabit connection, you should be able to get 100 megabits of bandwidth through to your home. Or at least that's the idea. But the reality is most of the ISPs out there don't actually have enough infrastructure to support the products that they're selling. You have a 100 megabit connection, but at any time of the day, you can run speed tests and you may be getting 50 megs or 30 megs. And that's a pretty common practice in the industry, that they have what's called network traffic management. They make decisions based on the network density or how much traffic is going through at a time to slow some traffic down so it doesn't overload their infrastructure.
Does it impact you worse if it's on your specific network, like if your kids are using it too, or is it also a conglomeration of everybody in just that general area using the internet?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably not so much your house, but your region. Frequently, I mean, they're going to have different little hubs that are providing traffic to, various network segments. And so if that hub is overloaded, then they'll tend to slow it down a little bit. It's kind of like, if you've got a restaurant that seats 100 people, right? Theoretically, you can serve 100 people, but if 100 people walk into that restaurant at the same time, your back of house is not going to be able to handle that surge of business.
Okay.
And so, your hostess up front is going to stage those people in. Network traffic management kind of works the same way. They're like, okay, this is all super packed right now. We're going to slow some down to make sure that connection keeps going to everyone. Theoretically, they should probably just improve the infrastructure so they can actually serve up what they're selling.
Is that what the consumers are demanding? If I'm paying for 100 megabyte service, I'm getting 100 megabit service, or whatever the word is.
Well,
properly?
That's basically that's exactly it. The idea, when you buy a 100 megabit connection, you expect that that's what you're getting, but it's really not. They have this concept in telecom called bursty. You have a bursty connection. It'll burst up to 100 megs, but it's not actually going to have that consistent throughput. And a lot of times in the fine print, they'll have minimum throughput guarantees. They're like, it'll never get below 10 megs,
But now the internet service providers are wanting to basically be able to control the speeds at which they deliver the service to you. And so this is the idea behind the net neutrality. And really, the way I understand it, it benefits the internet service providers and it hurts the consumers, because now they can control the speed at which different traffic or different sites perform. For instance, YouTube videos could be slowed down to a crawl while they direct that traffic or that bandwidth over to other sites. Explain that a little bit.
Well, I mean, and that's the case. One of the biggest reason that there's a push for what's called a common carrier designation is that it makes ISPs treat internet traffic the same as any other utility, like power, water, anything else. You don't expect that when you turn on the tap, it might come out a little bit slower because there's not enough water coming through the pipes. You expect that it's always going to turn on full blast, and it applies that same rule to internet traffic. It says if you've bought a 100 megabit connection, you deserve to have a 100 megabit connection all the time, and the ISPs don't get to make decisions about what types of traffic that can be, because IP traffic is IP traffic. At the end of the day, it's all just zeros and ones. And
this is all regulated by the FCC, correct?
Correct. Well, sort of regulated by the FCC.
Okay, so I mean, this is not something I hear about this through the wind, but it's not something that I'm hearing consumers, screaming about constantly. Is this something that we need to be mindful of? Is this something that it looks like it could, go into the favor of the internet service providers?
Well, I mean, let me ask you this: how much do you like your cable service provider?
I mean, I'm indifferent to them. Sometimes it works, sometimes,
Comcast has been like the most hated company in America for like 10 years in a row. And typically it's because they have poor service, they have packages that are complex and confusing, that they bundle all sorts of things in. You could start to see ISPs take a cable provider type approach where they say, hey, this package doesn't really include YouTube because we've got Vimeo as our premium partner. That's what comes with it. If you want YouTube and Netflix, then you're going to have to pay extra. On the flip side of that, the costs of those services to the consumer go up because the ISPs do the same thing to those providers. Verizon did that to Netflix. They asked them for a significant amount of money to give them the same level of access because they'd been artificially throttling their connections.
And then, so So basically, they can control the speed at which different sites are, running at. That way, a certain site that you like to go to isn't going to have the speed. That way, they may develop a similar site, and they're going to push all the bandwidth to their site. Then, am I getting that right?
Sure, and in a way that's distinctly untransparent to the consumer. Because the consumer's experience is, oh man, I'm going to go use Vimeo. They work great. Netflix is slow. And this, it's not just anti-competitive on the big scale. It fundamentally threatens to kill technology-based startups. Because if you've got some new streaming service that you're putting together or some new idea that relies on a strong internet connection, you're not going to be able to afford as a startup to pay the big boy premium rates to get full connection.
And so this would then vary by internet service provider. So if you had a provider in Colorado, I'm in Florida, our experiences on whatever particular site are going to vary depending on who's providing the bandwidth then. Am I correct?
Right, although we're seeing less and less of that because the ISPs are becoming the same kinds of monopolies that the telcos were. Eventually, essentially, they have all been absorbing one another until now. There's really only 3 or 4 actual major players in the ISP space.
So right now it's the end of August 2017. What's going on in this space? I think you're saying today's the last day that consumers can speak up against this. What's going on?
Yeah, the FCC has had what they call a call for comment from the public because that's their whole input process. And so far, there's been something like 5 million comments from the public, overwhelmingly against them removing these common carrier protections. It's kind of the way that the FCC is talking right now. It seems like they're likely going to ignore that and just remove that protection and move forward again on it. ISPs, and especially some of the big cable connected ISPs, lobby aggressively and spend almost more than any other industry, and it's how they've developed such a tight control over the American ISP.
I remember hearing about this briefly during the Obama administration. Did they remove some type of restriction or some type of law or something that made this become an issue? I can't quite remember what happened with this to make this
there were a couple of different bills. I think SOPA was probably the most well-known one. A lot of internet sites went black for a day to protest it. And it was not specifically related to this, but it was involving certain deregulations of how internet traffic is working. And it kind of really accelerated the call for net neutrality or common carrier protections.
Was this something that you think is going to side with the ISPs then? I mean, it sounds like you're leaning towards that, the consumer, even though with 5 million, voices, strong, and of course, the cable and the internet companies.
It's 5 million in a country of 370 million, and a lot of people that are out there, I hear passionately arguing against net neutrality because it's being sold as a government takeover of the internet,
right?
Which it fundamentally is not. All it is another. It's the same kinds of protections that we have with our phone service now, right? You can't get subpar phone service. It's phone service. It has to be at a certain level.
So how are the ISPs then selling it to the consumers? As this is a good thing for you? Because there's always got to be that, the happy side of every argument. So what are they selling it to us as?
Well, they're saying, hey, listen, we can allow a suite of services, tiered services that are out there. And if somebody wants to pay less for a lesser quality service, then they have that. And that's really the only thing that they're focusing on. They're saying the government is going to take away our ability to be competitive in this space. It's probably going to cost you more because we're going to be bound by these rules. And really, that's just not the case.
Isn't that already the case, though? I mean, I know I can get like the 100 megabit service,
sure.
And then I get the 50, and there's different levels.
You can get DSL, that's terrible.
Right, but don't they already have that tier type of structure?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of the conversation against it is selling it as this big boogeyman takeover by the government of the internet, and fundamentally, that's just not true. This is how the rest of the world treats the internet, and we would be the only country in the world that would be attempting to create this tiered level of access service.
And you were telling me that the United States ranks not even
that's not even in the top 10, depending on which measure, but actual average throughput, last time I saw it was around 48th in the world.
And that's in technology, 48th in the world in technology, which blows my mind. I know we have this natural inclination to believe that America is number one in everything. It's just the way we're raised.
I wish that was the case. and the fact is, I mean, we fundamentally did more to invent the internet than any other country in the world. So it's kind of sad that we're running into these issues now because we were the innovators who helped make all this happen.
The internet started back in the 60s with the military,
DARPA,
correct?
Yeah, DARPA and grants that they put out to private universities. DARPANet was the first version of the internet, and you had to be a .edu to have access to it at the time.
Yeah, no, I remember. I like you said, both of us, had lived a life, without the internet, and sometimes I look back and wonder how I grew up. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of glad I did, because when I was young, I got outside and did things and everything. I don't know if I would have done that had I had the internet and everything today, but it's definitely changed the world and everything. And it's developed in a way that was really uncontrolled. And I think a lot of people kind of want to go back. I remember, I don't even know if I haven't heard this come out in a while, but I remember there was supposed to be like this new internet design years ago, Internet 2. They were calling it that. They were going to redesign the internet the way it should have been designed to begin with. I don't know. Is there any talk about redesigning the internet and the routers?
Well,
and
I mean, fundamentally, there are some changes that are currently in place right now. HTTP2 is one of those things, and it's basically Tim Berners-Lee, the guy, the CERN scientist, I think almost 40 years ago now, developed the HTTP protocol, which was the first ability to make some sense out of how we were formatting content for the web and how to organize the web. The idea that you could use text to be a link from one site to another. But that was all a very linear kind of internet transport. And now with HTTP2, what they've done is they've made it much easier to send lots of smaller simultaneous requests instead of one big request, which could increase speeds significantly if it's fully adopted around the world.
Is that what's expected, an increase in speeds on the internet? I mean, we're doing pretty good, but definitely room for improvement on downloads and uploads and everything. But it's come a long way, though, in a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, most of Europe and Scandinavia and South Korea, of course, gigabit speed is pretty much the standard. We're still very much behind here in the U.S., but I'm hoping that we get back up to speed and back up to being innovators.
So to protect us in the net neutrality space, what should consumers do? Contact the FCC? Is there a site, or is there a core place where we need to go and have
a FCC.gov, and if you search for any of I think John Oliver actually has a net neutrality website up. I don't remember the domain name off the top of my head right now, but if you Google John Oliver net neutrality, you'll probably see that it has a really good explanation of what's at stake, how it all works, and why the internet should be fundamentally a common carrier service.
Interesting topic, so be paying attention. Net neutrality. They don't want to take away another resource from us. And I was watching a little bit on this yesterday. They liken it to, it's a utility. Internet service is a utility, and it's like water and it's like electric. They can charge you for the product, but they can't charge you for how you use that particular product. And that's what they're trying to do with taking away the net neutrality. So make sure you're in the know and speak up against this type of stuff. And you can learn more at fcc.gov on how to speak out against this. And again, today being one of the last days to speak out against this, but again, just be in the know. So great way to again learn about this stuff by watching the show each and every morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to him about the site Reddit, an interesting site that has quite a steep learning curve, but can drive a lot of business to your site if you can learn how to figure it out. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. My guest today is Chris Jenkins, Chief Digital Officer with Symphony. Learn more at symphonyagency.com. So, Chris, the site Reddit. I came across this site several months ago, started messing around with it. Somebody said Reddit's a great site to drive, business to. I thought it was just another social media site, so I went there and tried to post something. It got pulled down because I violated some rules. I don't know really what's going on with it, but you're a Redditor, right?
I'm actually in the top 1% of all Redditors by Karma, which is the scoring system that they use.
All right, let's start at the beginning of this. First of all, Reddit has more views than a lot of news sites, correct?
Yeah, they actually average about 4.5 billion page views a month, and I think they have something like 90 million registered users.
And each page has a Redditor, right? You can go on there and create a Reddit about whatever topic you want. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's the easiest way to think of it is like forums and sub-forums. If you remember, the old forum style of conversation. Not many people use forums anymore with the rise of social media. But the idea is that a Reddit or a subreddit is a topically centered group around some specific thing like cars or food or something like that.
Okay.
And then users can drop either text links, to which are basically a piece of text. Imagine like a Facebook post where you just write some things in it and hit send, or actual outbound links, site links, to news sites, to your website, things along that line. And then the users of that group will either vote it up or vote it down, or if you violate policies, the moderators will remove it.
Right. I went in there and I found a Reddit on entrepreneurship. I tried to put one of my blogs in there. Thought I was contributing, but it violated some service. At least they didn't send me a nasty email about it or anything. It just got removed. So how do you get involved in this community?
Well, I mean, for people who are looking to use Reddit to help drive some traffic or revenue to their business, you have to start by being a Redditor. You have to go in there and participate without trying to do anything promotional to get a feel for how the organization or how the site works. I actually helped found one of the earliest anti-spam groups on the site. So many marketers are flooding the site daily with garbage links that Reddit as a whole has developed a number of systems and rules which help trim all that out. So your basic, link blast style marketing is just not going to work. It'll disappear immediately. You've got to know how to speak to the audience. You kind of have to know some of the in-jokes, and you have to know what's appropriate and where you're posting it. And whatever you're posting there really fundamentally has to have value. If you've just put together a blog post, which is a thinly disguised advertisement for your service, it's not going to survive. You've got to answer a question or solve a problem. It's got to be something significant that people organically want to engage in.
And how many different subreddits then should one participate in, or do people participate in multiple subreddits? I mean, from a business owner standpoint, should they pick one that's specific to their business and then begin to learn that culture inside that subreddit? For instance, if you're a marketing company, for instance.
It's going to be way too limited to just be in one subreddit fundamentally. I mean, I would say start off with 8 or 10. If for example, in our business, I would say join our technology, our entrepreneurship, our marketing. They actually have marketing subreddits where you can go in there and talk to other marketers.
Now, can other people come in and start a whole new marketing subreddit?
Anybody can start a whole new group at any point in time. But it can't
be named marketing, though, right?
No, it would have to have a slight variation.
It'd have to have some type of variation. Okay.
Yeah.
And they all begin with R or something, Reddit, marketing, and whatnot. And then you get in there, and you gotta establish clout, though, like you're saying. You can't just go in there and start promoting stuff. So they want you to share stuff of value. So
right.
I guess
Reddit has a karma system, and it's based on, they have link karma and comment karma. So you get link karma by having people upvote links that you submit, and you get comment karma by having people upvote your comments. And so in most cases, if you're a fairly new user to a subreddit, the first thing they're going to do when you submit a link is go hit your profile and check your karma. And a lot of the subreddits even have bots that have rules in place where if you have less than 1,000 karma, your post is auto deleted. They don't care.
Yeah, I noticed. I think my post I was talking about earlier got taken down by a bot. It's sort of like Wikipedia when you go in there, you make a change or something. And I even tried that. I tried to contribute to a Wikipedia article one time, and it got taken down. So I'm trying to be a contributor to these things, and I just don't know the culture and everything.
Each subreddit has their own moderators, whoever created that subreddit, and they have access to a centralized system called auto moderator, and they can create their own rules for their group using auto moderator, and it just makes it simple to stay ahead of what things are. You can block specific sites. You can say no posts that have outbound links, make them conversation posts only. There's like a ton of stuff in place. It's very sophisticated at detecting spam and killing it.
But you said if you can learn this site well, there's no greater source on the site or internet that could drive business to just drive people to your site. Am I correct?
People would, when we talk about driving traffic, a lot of small business owners are excited when they get, 1,000 or 5,000 hits or something along that line. Posts that do well on Reddit, if you front page on Reddit, you get 100,000 hits in 8 hours. I mean, it drives traffic like nothing else. What
is it about this community then that people take it so seriously, and why has it built up such a following? What's the history behind this site?
I think a lot of people have tried to figure out Reddit's secret sauce
so
that they could. Yeah, Alexis Ohanian actually is the original founder, and then Steve Summers or Steve Hoffman and a few other guys. The whole point of it was that they facilitated conversations freely, and they let people be their own managers of these groups. And when it first started out, it was mostly just us nerds. It was heavily technology focused. And a lot of the other hard sciences began following. So you've got like our science and our history, and certain subcultures began building up, and it's self-propagating. I mean, there's what they call the natural porn series of groups. And by natural porn, they're talking about like food porn, earth porn, things like that, where it's just beautiful pictures that are being shared of places around the world. And collectively, the community has done things together, like raised money for teachers and you know, stuff along that line, which I think it creates a sense of belonging to something that you don't get with Facebook. And so it drives participation, and you keep coming back, you know.
I like that.
Also, the cumulative karma score, it gamifies the interaction in ways that a lot of other sites don't. I mean, you know, in Facebook, you can get, you know, 200 likes on a post, but you don't have any clue what your total number of likes across your
that's
entire
interesting you bring it up. I just read a book called Contagious by Dr. Jonah Berger on what makes things go viral, what makes them go contagious. And gamification was one of those 6 steps, as he talks about it in his books, and I did a show on that too. But yeah, gamifying, you know, your site or whatnot definitely helps it stand out amongst the others.
And so in your profile on Reddit, they actually have a trophy case. So you got your karma score at the top, and then you've got all these trophies from various events that you participate in, or how many times you've given Reddit Gold, which is basically like a way to, it's like buying a virtual badge for a poster, you know? And then like various events that they run, because they do site-wide events frequently. Like they did The Basement, which was a thing that they did on April Fool's Day, and it was a whole little group that was the whole it was decorated with green mold decorations, and it looked terrible. And then every time you posted, your characters would be degraded a little bit. Vowels would start dropping out of your words. Just little fun stuff like that. And so it has, despite the fact that it's, you know, millions and millions of people from all over the world, it feels like one big community. And that's something no other site like that has ever achieved. Right?
How long does it take somebody to really learn Reddit and become, you know, a member of that community to where they can start to maybe drive some traffic to their own sites?
I mean, I guess it depends on how much you use it. You know, I'm on Reddit as often or more often than I'm on Facebook or other social media platforms.
But you use
day.
it completely differently than the other sites. How you post, how you interact, what you share, and everything.
Yeah.
And so again, the idea is that you come in, you begin to share, you begin to build karma. So what's like a trick to doing that? Go find a YouTube video with a bunch of views, a cat video, and share like, hey, look at this.
Well, if you ask anyone on Reddit what's the easiest way to get karma, they would just tell you go find an old post that had a lot of karma and repost it as though it's new.
Oh, really?
Because the community tends to, you know, it cycles through users, and things that are popular a year ago will be popular again. You know, funny GIFs or animal pictures that are cute, stuff along that line.
Yeah.
You know. And it's easy to build things up that way. There's actually a user on there who's famous for this named Gallowboob, and he's like, half of his posts are reposts, and he's got millions in karma at this point. It's just ridiculous. But
so the karma is like your Twitter followers, like your Facebook likes on your fan page. That's
sort of,
that's
yeah.
kind of how
it's a cumulative measure of how upvoted your contributions have been.
Okay, that makes sense. And you said that you were a Redditor. Which Reddits do you control or are part of?
I moderate about 7 or 8 subreddits, and then I'm subscribed to probably 90 or 100. Most of them are technology based, and then a lot of the GIF ones, because I take GIFs from there and I put them on Facebook and get likes on Facebook. So you know, we repurpose that content frequently.
But it's today. There's a Reddit for just about every topic though out there, for whether it's good or bad out there. Right?
Yeah, the most bizarre thing you can imagine, there's probably a subreddit that's dedicated specifically to that.
Because I know every now and then I watch a lot of YouTube videos and stuff will pop up that says the bad side of Reddit, or you know, the bad things on Reddit. But if used effectively, it can definitely drive people to your site. So
yeah, one of the things Reddit's done, because Reddit is wildly uncensored, and you know there have been you know, racist type organizations who have used Reddit as a platform. There's a significant amount of porn on Reddit, not earth porn, and so Reddit's made it really easy with some of the tools that they developed that you can filter all of that content so it never actually appears in your feeds at all, and you can get a lot out of it.
Well, good discussion today. Chris Jenkins, a Chief Digital Officer with Symphony. Before we go, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Symphony, a marketing agency based here in St. Petersburg, Florida. What's going on with Symphony?
Man, we're actually killing it at Symphony right now. We're in the process of churning out 3 products that I don't want to go too heavy into right now because we're still in beta on a couple of them. But we've now got a digital turnkey marketing product called Blue Local, which we're finding digital consultancies to be partners with and building a network that's able to service small businesses effectively who are looking for simple turnkey monthly marketing.
All right. SymphonyAgency.com for more information on that. Lauren Davenport, the CEO, was on the program before. We've talked more in depth about what they do, but they are definitely a growing digital marketing agency in Tampa Bay, or in the St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay area. So reach out to them, SymphonyAgency.com. Chris Jenkins, Chief Digital Officer, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Always a pleasure.
Learn more about this program at thatbusinessnetwork.com and catch new episodes each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Please subscribe to us on iTunes and on YouTube, and we'll catch you back here on our next program. Thanks so much.